The ranger station smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. I sat across from Tom Hendricks, the district supervisor, while he slid a manila folder across his desk toward me. "Job's yours, if you want it," he said. "Season runs through September. Pay's not great, but you get solitude. Sounds like that's what you're after." I nodded. Wes Smith, 28 years old, unemployed graphic designer with a maxed-out credit card and an ex-girlfriend who'd already moved her new boyfriend into what used to be our apartment. Yeah, solitude sounded pretty damn good. "It's isolated," Tom continued. 6 miles up, no road access. You pack everything in. Radio contact with other towers and base station, but that's it. Cell phones don't work up there. Perfect. He opened the folder and pulled out a laminated sheet of paper. "Before you sign, you need to read these. Tower rules. Every station has them." I took the sheet. It was surprisingly official looking, printed on heavy cardstock with the Forest Service logo at the top. 8 rules, numbered and clear. Never respond to voices calling your name after sunset. If you see lights moving through the trees at night, close all shutters immediately. Keep the radio on channel 7 between 9 and 9:15 every night. Do not acknowledge the woman in the white dress if you see her on the trail. If something knocks 3 times on your door, do not answer until it knocks a 4th time. Never look directly at the tower across the valley through binoculars after dark. Burn sage in the tower every Sunday at noon. If you hear children laughing in the forest, go inside immediately. I read through them twice, waiting for Tom to crack a smile. He didn't. "Is this a joke?" I finally asked. "No joke. Every lookout gets the same rules. You follow them, you'll be fine." "What happens if I don't?" Tom's expression didn't change. Previous guy didn't come back down. Found him 3 miles from the tower in July. Died of hypothermia. He let that sink in. "Look, I don't know what's up there. Been doing this job 20 years, and I've learned not to ask questions. The rules work. Just follow them." I should have walked out right then. Should have known better. But I needed the job. Needed to get away from Seattle. Needed something, anything different. "Where do I sign?" The hike up took 5 hours. My pack weighed 60 pounds, loaded with supplies for the first 2 weeks. The trail switchbacked through old-growth forest, Douglas fir and western hemlock rising like cathedral pillars on either side. Shafts of afternoon sunlight broke through the canopy, illuminating patches of sword ferns and moss. It was beautiful, peaceful, exactly what I needed. The tower appeared suddenly as I crested the final ridge. A small wooden cabin perched atop a 40-foot steel structure, windows on all sides reflecting the sky. The kind of place that would have made a great album cover. I could already feel my shoulders relaxing. The ladder up was steep and exposed. I tried not to look down as I climbed, my pack throwing off my balance. By the time I reached the trap door at the top, my arms were shaking. The cabin was maybe 14 feet square. Windows wrapped around all 4 sides, offering a 360-degree view of the Cascades. A narrow bed sat in one corner, a small propane stove and counter in another. A desk with radio equipment faced north. A firefinder, an old brass and glass device for triangulating smoke locations, occupied the center of the room. It was clean but felt lived in. Personal touches from the previous occupant remained. a faded mariner's mug on the counter, a rain jacket hanging by the door, a spiral-bound journal on the windowsill with most of its pages torn out. Only a few scraps of paper remained, edges ragged where they'd been ripped from the binding. I picked up the journal, flipping through the fragments that remained. Most were blank or contained only partial sentences. Can't stop thinking about. And she promised. And then tonight I'll finally. The handwriting became increasingly erratic on the final pages. I set it down, unsettled. The sun was getting low. I needed to unpack, make dinner, figure out the radio equipment. The laminated rules sheet sat on the desk where the previous lookout had left it. I read through them again, feeling ridiculous. Channel 7 between 9 and 9:15. That was specific enough to bother me. I checked my watch. 6:30. Plenty of time to get settled before I had to worry about mysterious radio protocols. The first 2 days passed without incident. I fell into a routine quickly. Wake at dawn, morning radio check with the base station, scan the horizon for smoke, eat breakfast, read, scan again, eat lunch, hike the perimeter trail, scan again, make dinner, watch the sunset, sleep. It was exactly the kind of monotonous peace I'd been craving. No emails, no social media, no awkward encounters with Emily and her new boyfriend at the grocery store. Just me, the mountains, an endless sky. Other lookouts checked in over the radio during the day. Patricia at North Ridge Tower, about 15 miles away. Dennis at Copper Peak. A woman named Ruth at Devil's Thumb who had a laugh like gravel in a blender. They all sounded experienced, comfortable with the isolation. I didn't mention the rules. Nobody else did either. On the third night, I remembered Channel 7 at 9 o'clock. I'd been avoiding it, telling myself it was stupid superstition. But as the hour approached, curiosity got the better of me. I switched the radio to Channel 7 and waited. Static. Just normal radio static. 9:15 came and went. Nothing happened. I felt both relieved and disappointed. The rules were just hazing, I decided. Something to spook the new guy. I switched back to the main channel and started making tea. Then I heard it. A voice barely audible beneath the static. Thank you for listening. It was a woman's voice. Soft, almost tender. It lasted maybe 2 seconds before dissolving back into white noise. I grabbed the radio. Hello. This is Cascade Tower. Who's on this channel? No response. Just static. I checked the clock. 9:17. Whatever it was already over. I told myself it was probably interference from one of the other towers. Radio waves did weird things in the mountains. Nothing to worry about. But I left the radio on Channel 7 the next night, just in case. It was almost midnight when I heard my name. Wes! The voice came from outside, somewhere below the tower, clear and distinct despite the wind. Wes, come down. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, reading by flashlight. The voice froze me mid-page. It sounded like my father, same timbre, same cadence. But my father was in Arizona, hadn't spoken to me in 3 years after I dropped out of business school. Wes, I need to talk to you. Rule number 1. Never respond to voices calling your name after sunset. My hand moved toward the trapdoor before I caught myself. Every instinct screamed at me to look, to answer, to see who was down there in the dark. but Tom's words echoed in my head. The rules work. Just follow them. I set the book down carefully, moved away from the door. The voice continued. Wes, please. I came all this way. It was so convincing. The slight rasp my father got when he was tired, the way he said my name with a falling inflection, like a disappointed sigh. If I hadn't known he was in Arizona, I would have been certain it was him. Son, don't ignore me. I sat on the bed, hands clenched, staring at the trapdoor. Minutes passed. The voice kept calling, sometimes pleading, sometimes angry. Sometimes it was my father. Sometimes it shifted, became Emily's voice, then my old boss, then friends I hadn't talked to in years. Wes, West, Wes. It got closer. Whatever was making those sounds was climbing the tower. I could hear footsteps on the steel ladder now, heavy and deliberate. Metal creaking under weight. The voice was right below the trapdoor. Just open up, Wes. Let me in. My heart hammered against my ribs. I backed into the corner farthest from the door, gripping the fire axe I'd seen mounted on the wall. The blade felt slick in my sweating palms. The footsteps stopped. Something pressed against the trapdoor from below. I could see it flexing slightly, hear the hinges creaking. Then silence. I waited, not daring to move. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Nothing. Eventually, I worked up the courage to look out the window, down at the base of the tower. The moonlight was bright enough to see the ground clearly. Nothing there. No one on the ladder. I didn't sleep that night. The morning radio check felt absurdly normal after the night I'd had. Patricia's cheerful voice crackled through. Morning, Cascade. See anything interesting? Yeah, something mimicked my father's voice and tried to get me to open the door. But I just said, negative. Clear skies. I needed to get out of the tower, clear my head. There was a possible smoke sighting to the west that Dennis had reported the previous afternoon. Probably just morning mist. But it gave me an excuse to hike. The trail wound through dense forest, crossing streams and meadows. The physical exertion felt good, grounding. By the time I'd confirmed the smoke was indeed just fog in a valley, I'd almost convinced myself last night was a nightmare or my imagination. Then I saw her. She was standing in the middle of the trail about 50 yards ahead. A woman in a white dress, long dark hair hanging straight down her back. She faced away from me, perfectly still. Rule number 4. Do not acknowledge the woman in the white dress if you see her on the trail. My first instinct was to call out, ask if she was lost. But something about her stillness stopped me. People don't stand that still. Don't stand that perfectly centered on a trail in the middle of nowhere. I kept walking, forcing myself to maintain a steady pace. Not too fast, not too slow. Eyes forward. Don't look at her. Don't acknowledge her. The distance closed. 40 yards, 30, 20. She never moved, not an inch. The wind rustled the trees around us, but her hair didn't stir. Her dress didn't flutter. 10 yards. I could see she was barefoot. Her feet were pale, almost luminescent against the dark earth of the trail. I walked past her, so close I could have touched her. The temperature dropped noticeably, like stepping into a walk-in freezer. My breath came out in a visible puff. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to run, but I maintained my pace. Don't react. Don't acknowledge. 5 yards past her now. 10, 15. I felt it then. The unmistakable sensation of being watched. The pressure of eyes on the back of my neck. She turned around. She was looking at me. Don't look back. 20 yards. 30. 50. When I finally glanced over my shoulder, the trail was empty. She was gone, as if she'd never been there at all. The nightly ritual on Channel 7 became increasingly disturbing. Every night at 9 o'clock, I switched to Channel 7. Every night between 9 o'clock and 9:15, I heard whispers through the static. Different each time. 47 degrees north, 121 degrees west. Michael Anderson, born 1973, died 2011. Don't trust the fourth knock. She's waiting at the boundary. Sometimes the whispers overlapped, multiple voices speaking simultaneously. Sometimes they spoke in languages I didn't recognize. Sometimes they were just sounds, breathing, crying, laughter. But every night at 9:15, the whispers stopped abruptly, leaving only static. I started dreading sunset. On the 8th night, something knocked on the trap door. 3 sharp raps. Knock, knock, knock. I was sitting at the desk, eating ramen and listening to the wind. The knocks made me drop my fork. Rule number 5. If something knocks 3 times on your door, do not answer until it knocks a 4th time. I stared at the trap door, waited. Silence. Minutes crawled by. My ramen got cold. I didn't move from the chair, didn't take my eyes off the door. The trap door was latched from the inside, I reminded myself. Nothing could open it unless I released the latch. I was safe as long as I didn't. The scratching started. It came from directly below the door. Not animal scratching, too deliberate, too rhythmic, like fingernails dragging across wood in long, slow strokes. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It went on for hours. I sat frozen at the desk, listening to whatever was down there methodically working at the wood. Sometimes the scratching stopped, and I'd hear breathing. Heavy, wet breathing that sounded wrong somehow, like there was too much moisture in it. The scratching continued until dawn. When the first light broke over the eastern peaks, it stopped suddenly. I waited another hour before I worked up the courage to open the trapdoor and look. Deep gouges marked the wood around the latch. 4 parallel lines, like something had dragged claws across the surface. The marks were fresh, splinters still pale and exposed. I spent the rest of the day trying to convince myself a bear had climbed the tower. Bears could climb. Bears had claws. But bears couldn't knock 3 times. 2 weeks in, I made my first real mistake. I'd been watching the abandoned tower across the valley since I arrived. During the day, it was clearly derelict, missing windows, sagging structure, no sign of habitation. According to Patricia, it had been shut down in the 90s after a fire damaged the stairs. But I kept finding my eyes drawn to it, especially at sunset when the light hit it at an angle. There was something compelling about its silhouette against the mountains. Rule number 6. Never look directly at the tower across the valley through binoculars after dark. I'd been good about that rule. During the day, sure, I'd look through the binoculars at the abandoned tower. But after dark, I kept the binoculars put away. Until the night I saw the light. It was past 10 o'clock. I was getting ready for bed when I noticed a faint glow coming from the abandoned tower. Just a flicker, like candlelight in one of the windows. Probably just moonlight reflecting off something, I told myself. But I couldn't stop staring at it. The glow seemed to pulse slightly, strengthening and fading in a steady rhythm. The binoculars sat on the desk. Before I fully realized what I was doing, I'd picked them up and raised them to my eyes. The abandoned tower sprang into focus, suddenly close enough to see details. The windows weren't broken after all. They were intact, clean even, and the light wasn't candlelight. It came from inside the cabin, electric, bright and steady. A figure stood at the window. I couldn't see details, just a silhouette backlit by that bright light. But it was clearly human-shaped, and it was facing my direction. As I watched, the figure raised something to its face. Binoculars. It was looking back at me. I dropped my binoculars like they'd burned me. My hands shook as I rushed to close all the shutters, plunging the cabin into darkness. I could feel its eyes on me through the walls, through the darkness, through the miles of empty air between us. That was the longest night yet. I sat in the dark, listening to sounds I couldn't identify. Footsteps that might have been wind, breathing that might have been my own, whispers that might have been imagination. Something circled the tower. I could hear it moving around the perimeter, the steel structure transmitting vibrations up through the floor, round and round, steady as a clock. Then the ladder creaked. Something was climbing. I grabbed the fire axe again, positioned myself facing the trap door. The ladder creaked with each ascending step. Whatever was climbing was heavy, taking its time. The creaks got closer, closer, until they were right beneath the door. Then they stopped. I waited, axe raised, barely breathing. The silence was worse than the sounds. What was it doing down there? Why had it stopped? Dawn came eventually, as it always did. When there was enough light to see by, I cracked open the eastern shutter. The abandoned tower across the valley stood dark and ruined, windows clearly broken, structure visibly damaged. But I knew what I'd seen. Sunday came, and I forgot to burn the sage. I'd been so focused on my radio schedules and watching for voices and lights that the day of the week stopped mattering. It was only when I checked my calendar that evening that I realized rule number 7, burn sage in the tower every Sunday at noon. It was already 8 o'clock. I'd missed it by 8 hours. I found the sage in a drawer under the counter, a bundle of dried leaves wrapped with twine. I lit it immediately, waving it through the cabin, hoping that late was better than never. The smoke was thick and pungent, making my eyes water. Maybe it would be fine. Maybe the timing wasn't that important. I should have known better. That night, everything happened at once. At 9 o'clock, the whispers on Channel 7 were louder than ever, overlapping voices that rose to shrieks before cutting off suddenly. At 9:30, something knocked on the door. 3 times, then 3 more, then 3 more again. Never a 4th knock, just endless repetitions of 3. By 10 o'clock, lights were moving through the trees below. Not flashlights. These lights were too bright, too steady, too wrong. They drifted between the trees like paper lanterns, gliding smoothly over terrain that should have made them bob and weave. I closed the shutters, but I could see the lights through the cracks, bright enough to cast moving shadows inside the cabin. The shadows bent at wrong angles, suggesting shapes that hurt to look at. The scratching started again, not just below the trapdoor this time, all around the tower, on the walls, on the windows, on the shutters, like dozens of things were climbing the structure, scraping and clawing. The tower itself began to sway. Steel doesn't sway in wind, not this much. The whole structure rocked back and forth, side to side, like something massive was climbing it. The floor tilted at alarming angles. Items slid across the desk. The firefighter tipped over with a crash. Through it all, the radio continued its chorus of whispers. And somewhere in that chaos, I heard new sounds. Children laughing. The same joyful, innocent laughter that should have meant playground games and summer afternoons. But hearing it out here, in the dark, mixed with scratching and creaking and whispers, it became the most terrible sound I'd ever heard. The figure from the abandoned tower stood outside my door. I couldn't see it. The shutters were closed. The cabin was dark. But I knew it was there. I could feel its presence, like weight on my chest, like cold water in my lungs. It pressed against the door from the outside, and I could see the wood bowing inward slightly, the hinges creaking. "Wes," it said. Not my father's voice this time. Something else. Something that had never been human. "Open the door, Wes." I remembered the sage. With shaking hands, I relit it, waving it frantically through the cabin. The smoke filled the small space, choking and thick. "Follow the rules, Wes. Burn the sage. That's all you have to do." The smoke reached the trap door. The second it did, everything stopped. The knocking ceased. The scratching fell silent. The tower settled back to stillness. The whispers on the radio cut off mid-word. Complete silence. I stood in the dark, sage smoldering in my hand, listening to my own ragged breathing. Slowly, carefully, I opened one shutter. The forest below was dark and still, no lights, no figures, no signs that anything had been there at all. But I knew what happened when you broke the rules. The next morning, I tried calling the base station during the regular check-in. Tom's voice crackled through. "Cascade Tower, this is base. Go ahead." "Tom, I need to talk to you about the rules." Silence on the other end, then, "Everything okay up there, Wes?" How could I explain? Their voices mimicked my dead relatives, that something climbed the tower every night, that I'd seen a figure in an abandoned tower miles away, watching me through binoculars. I need to know more about them, about what happens if you follow the rules. You're fine. That's all you need to know. The previous lookout. You said he didn't follow them. What exactly? The radio crackled with interference. When Tom's voice came back, it was firm. "Focus on your job, Wes. Watch for fires. Follow the rules. I'll see you in September." The connection cut off. I tried Patricia next, switching to the channel we used for tower-to-tower communication. "Northridge, this is Cascade. Patricia, are you there?" "Morning, Cascade. What's up? Can we talk? About the rules?" A long pause, then quietly. "Not over the radio. Hold on." 5 minutes later, she called back on a different channel. "Okay, this one's more private. What do you need to know?" "Everything. What are these things? Why do the rules work? What happens if... Slow down, Patricia said. Her voice was kind but weary. How long have you been up there? 2 weeks. I've been doing this for 15 years. Different towers all over the state. They all have rules. Different rules, but same idea. You follow them, you're safe. You don't. She paused. I've known 3 lookouts who didn't follow the rules. One disappeared. One went crazy, had to be hospitalized. The 3rd one died. That was probably your predecessor. But what are they? What's out here? I don't know. Nobody knows. There are theories. Old logging disaster back in the 50s. Dozens of people died in these mountains. Some kind of accident at the camp, though the records are all vague about what actually happened. Some people think the land got changed somehow. Haunted, cursed, whatever word you want to use. You've seen things? Yeah, I've seen things, heard things. The rules keep them satisfied somehow. They need to know someone is watching, someone is listening. It's like a contract. We man the towers, we follow their rules. They leave us alone. Mostly. You'll have bad nights. Nights when they test you. But if you follow the rules, you'll be okay. Only 4 more weeks for you. Summer season, then you're out. You can make it. 4 more weeks. It felt like a lifetime. Why do people keep taking these jobs if they know? Patricia laughed, but there was no humor in it. Most people don't know. The rules seem like local folklore, superstition. Most summers go by with nothing weird happening, or at least nothing weird enough to convince someone it's real. And the people who do find out, well, they either quit immediately or they keep coming back. There's something about this job, about being up here. It gets in your head. Thanks, Patricia. Follow the rules, Wes. All of them. All the time. Promise me. I promise. I meant it. I found the rest of the journal that afternoon. I'd been cleaning, trying to keep myself occupied, when I noticed one of the floorboards near the bed was loose. Underneath, wrapped in a trash bag, were the torn-out pages from the previous lookout's journal. The early entries were normal enough. Complaints about the hike, observations about the weather, crude drawings of birds. Then, June 15th, I saw her today. The woman in the white dress. She was just standing there on the trail. I didn't acknowledge her, followed the rules, but I swear she smiled as I walked past. How did she know I could see her? June 22nd. The voices at night are getting worse. Last night, one of them sounded exactly like my mum. She died 3 years ago. How would it know what she sounded like? How would it know to use her voice? July 3rd. I looked at the other tower through binoculars after dark. I know I wasn't supposed to, but I had to know. There was someone there, looking back at me. I think it was me. I think I was looking at myself. The handwriting became increasingly erratic. July 10th. She spoke to me today. The woman in white. I didn't acknowledge her, didn't respond, but she spoke anyway. She said my name. She said she's been waiting. She said, I don't have to be alone anymore. July 15th. I keep thinking about what she said. You don't have to be alone anymore. What does that mean? Why does that sound so good? Why do I want to go back and ask her? July 18th. I broke Rule 4. I spoke to her. I asked her what she meant. She smiled. God, she smiled. And she told me everything. About the forest, about what happened here, about what they need. She said I could be part of it. She said I could understand. She made promises. The final entry was barely legible. July 20th. Tonight, I'll finally know. She's waiting for me at the boundary. She says I just have to step across and everything will make sense. All the fear, all the confusion, it will all mean something. I won't be alone anymore. I won't be scared anymore. I'll finally understand. That was the last page. The next day, according to Tom, they found him dead 3 miles from the tower. Hypothermia in July. I put the pages back under the floorboard and tried not to think about them. But that night, I couldn't stop wondering. What promises had she made? What had he understood in those final moments? What had he seen at the boundary? Week 3 passed in a haze of paranoia and exhaustion. I followed every rule obsessively, checked them multiple times a day to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything. I burned sage every Sunday at exactly noon, set 3 separate alarms to remind myself. I kept the radio on channel 7 from 9 to 9:15 without fail. I never looked at the abandoned tower after dark. The phenomena continued, but they became almost routine. The voices called my name most nights. I stopped even flinching. The lights drifted through the trees. I just closed the shutters and waited. 3 knocks came regularly. I never answered. The woman in white appeared on the trail twice more. Both times I walked past without acknowledgement, feeling her turn to watch me, feeling that terrible cold. But I didn't look back. I didn't speak. I was learning the rhythm of this place, the rules of engagement. The forest was aware, and I was a guest. As long as I respected the boundaries, I would be safe. But on day 23, I heard the children. I was 2 miles from the tower, checking on a suspicious heat signature that had pinged on the firefinder. It was probably nothing, deer, hikers, natural thermal variation. But it was my job to investigate. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no insects, no wind in the trees, just silence. Then I heard it. Laughter. Children's laughter. Bright and joyful. It sounded like a dozen kids playing some game in the woods, running and chasing and having the time of their lives. The kind of sound that should make you smile. But there were no children up here. No camps, no trails, no reason for kids to be miles deep in wilderness. Rule number 8. If you hear children laughing in the forest, go inside immediately. I turned and ran. The laughter followed. It echoed through the trees, seeming to come from everywhere at once. Sometimes it was ahead of me, sometimes behind. The voices were young, maybe 6 or 7 years old, gleeful and innocent. "Wait," one of them called. "Don't you want to play?" "We're having so much fun," another shouted. "Come play with us." I crashed through underbrush, scrambled over fallen logs, took corners too fast, and nearly fell. My lungs burned. My pack bounced painfully against my back. But I didn't stop, didn't slow down. The laughter got closer. I could hear footsteps now, small feet running through the forest. They were faster than me, lighter, more agile. They were gaining. "Tag, you're it," a voice shrieked. So close it could have been right behind me. The tower appeared through the trees. I put on a final burst of speed, hit the ladder at a run, and started climbing. My hand slipped on the rungs. I didn't look down. Behind me, the laughter reached a crescendo. The ladder vibrated as if dozens of small hands were shaking it from below. I hauled myself through the trap door and slammed it shut, throwing the latch. Through the floor, I could hear them, laughing, playing, calling my name. Wes, Wes, come play. We just want to play, Wes. You're no fun. It went on for hours. The tower rang with their voices, their footsteps on the stairs, their hands banging on the walls and door. But they couldn't get in. The rules protected me here. Eventually, as the sun set, the sounds faded. The forest returned to its usual evening chorus of crickets and birds. I sat in the corner, hugging my knees, waiting for my heart rate to return to normal. Only 3 more weeks. That night on Channel 7, the whisper was different. Wes, it said, just my name, clear and distinct through the static. I grabbed the radio. Who is this? You've been so good, Wes. Following all the rules, being so careful. The voice was female, soft, and almost affectionate. It made my skin crawl. What do you want? I want to help you understand. Don't you want to understand? Understand what? Why the rules work, what we are, what this place is. A pause then. Don't you want to know why you're really here? I didn't answer. The clock showed 9:14. 1 more minute, and this would be over. You're not here to watch for fires, Wes. There are satellites for that, drones, aircraft. You're here because the forest needs someone to watch, someone to listen, someone to maintain the contract. What contract? The boundary, the rules. As long as someone mans the towers and follows the protocols, we stay in the forest. We don't go beyond. But if the towers are abandoned, if the rules are forgotten, the voice became a whisper, then we can leave. We can spread. We can find new places, new people. 9:15. The static swallowed the voice, but it had given me more information in those 15 seconds than I'd gotten in 3 weeks. The lookouts weren't just watching for fires. We were guards. We were maintaining some kind of barrier, some agreement between the forest and the world beyond. The rules weren't arbitrary. They were precise, necessary, binding. And I had 5 weeks left to keep them. Week 4 brought a new development. She appeared at the tower. I was scanning the horizon at dusk when I saw her in the reflection of the northern window. The woman in white, standing behind me inside the cabin. I spun around, nothing there. When I looked back at the window, she was still in the reflection, closer now. She was beautiful in the way porcelain dolls are beautiful, perfect and cold, and utterly wrong. Her dark hair framed a pale face with dark eyes that didn't blink. Her white dress looked expensive, vintage, like something from the 1950s. She was smiling. "Hello, Wes," she said. Her voice came from all around me, not from any specific direction. I didn't respond. Rule number 4 applied even here, even now. Do not acknowledge her. "I'm not on the trail," she said, still smiling. "That's only rule number 4. There's no rule about talking to me in the tower." She was right. I checked the laminated sheet. None of the rules specifically said not to talk to her here. But I didn't trust it, didn't trust her. "Your predecessor talked to me," she continued, circling. I could see her in the window reflection, moving around the cabin even though the cabin itself was empty. He was lonely too, desperate to understand. I helped him. You killed him? No. Her smile faded. He made a choice. I offered him peace, understanding, belonging. He accepted. What happened after was his decision. What do you want? To help you. You've been so good, so careful. But you're exhausted, Wes. You're scared. You have 5 more weeks of this. 5 more weeks of jumping at every sound, dreading every sunset, wondering if tonight's the night something gets through. She was right. I was exhausted. The constant vigilance was wearing me down, fraying my nerves. I barely slept anymore. I can make it easier, she said. I can explain the rules, help you understand. You'll still be safe, but you won't be so afraid anymore. Knowledge is power, Wes. Isn't that what they say? No. You don't even want to hear what I have to say. No. In the window reflection, her smile returned, wider than before. Then you're stronger than he was. Good. That makes it more interesting. She vanished from the reflection. The cabin felt empty again. But I knew she'd be back. The final 2 weeks crawled by with agonizing slowness. Every night brought new tests, new variations on familiar terrors. The voices used new tactics, old friends, childhood teachers, people I'd forgotten about. The lights in the forest formed shapes that looked almost like people, almost like faces. The knocking came in different patterns, always 3, never 4. But sometimes soft, sometimes violent, sometimes playful. And the woman in white appeared regularly now, always in reflections. In the windows, in the glass of the firefinder, in the screen of the radio. She never spoke again, just watched me with that porcelain smile. But I held firm. I followed every rule precisely. I burned sage at noon every Sunday. I kept Channel 7 on from 9 to 9:15. I closed shutters when lights appeared. I never acknowledged her, never responded to the voices, never looked at the abandoned tower after dark. The forest tested me, but I didn't break. Patricia checked in regularly during those final weeks. She never asked directly about what I was experiencing, but I could hear the understanding in her voice. She'd been through this, knew what it was like. "You're doing great, Wes," she said during one check-in. 2 more weeks. You've got this." "Does it get easier?" I asked. "If you come back for another season?" "No," she admitted, "but you get used to it. You learn to live with the fear, to function despite it. Some people even find it clarifying. Out here, you can't lie to yourself. You can't pretend the world is simple or safe. You see it for what it really is. And what is it? Bigger than we understand, stranger than we want to believe, full of things that don't care about our rules or logic." She paused, but also full of patterns, agreements, boundaries. The rules matter, Wes. They're the only thing between us and chaos. I thought about that a lot during the final days. The rules weren't just protection. They were structure in a place where structure shouldn't exist. They were the framework that kept reality stable, that prevented the wrongness of the forest from spilling out into the world. We weren't just watching for fires. We were holding the line. My last night in the tower was the worst. I'd packed most of my gear, ready to hike out at dawn. Just one more night, one more round of rules to follow. Then I'd be free, back to civilization, back to normal life, back to a world that made sense. At 9 o'clock, I turned on Channel 7 for the last time. The static resolved into a voice immediately. The woman in white. "Last night, Wes. You made it. I'm impressed." I didn't respond, just listened. "You know, you're different from the others. Most people either break or they become obsessed. They start to need this place, need the fear and the rules and the structure. But you're just counting down the days until you leave. You'll actually go, won't you? You won't come back." Silence on my end. "That's fine. That's good even. You're not meant for this. But before you go, I want you to know something." Her voice became softer, almost sad. "The rules work because we let them work, because we choose to honor the agreement. We could break it any time we wanted. We could come into the tower, could follow you down the mountain, could find you anywhere. But we don't, because the contract matters to us. It's all we have, the only thing that gives our existence structure and meaning." I felt cold despite the warm evening. "So thank you, Wes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for maintaining the boundary. You'll never know how important that was." At 9:15, the static swallowed her voice. The rest of the night was quiet. No voices calling my name. No lights in the forest. No knocking, no scratching, no children's laughter. Just peaceful silence, as if the forest itself was giving me one last reprieve. I didn't sleep. I sat at the desk, watching the stars wheel overhead, waiting for dawn. Tom was waiting at the base of the trail when I arrived, along with my replacement, a young guy, maybe 25, with an eager smile and expensive hiking gear. "Wes, good to see you made it down." Tom clapped me on the shoulder. "This is Brian. He'll be taking over for the rest of the season." Brian shook my hand enthusiastically. "Man, I'm so excited. I've been wanting to do this for years. The solitude, the nature, the simplicity of it all." He had no idea. Tom handed Brian the manila folder. "Rules are in here. Read them carefully." Brian laughed. "Right, the spooky rules. My friend did a lookout job in Oregon. They had the same kind of thing. Local color, right? Keep the new guys on edge." I met Tom's eyes. He gave me a slight shake of his head. "Don't say anything. Let him figure it out himself, same as everyone else. Just follow them," I said to Brian. "All of them. Exactly as written." Sure. He was already distracted, looking up at the mountains with that eager expression. "This is going to be amazing." Tom drove me back to the ranger station. We didn't talk much during the drive. When we arrived, he handed me my final paycheck. "You did good up there," he said. "Better than most. You ever want to come back? There's always positions available." "I don't think so." He nodded, unsurprised. "Most people don't. But some do. If you change your mind." I took the check and left. That was 2 months ago. I'm back in Seattle now. Found a new apartment, got a job at a marketing firm, started dating someone. Life has returned to normal, or as normal as it can be after spending a summer in the Cascades. But I can't shake it completely. Sometimes at night, when the city is quiet, I hear things. Voices calling my name from far away. Children's laughter in the empty street below my apartment. 3 knocks on my door that never reach a 4th. I keep sage in my kitchen now. Every Sunday at noon, I burn it, even though my girlfriend thinks it's weird. I keep a radio tuned to Channel 7 from 9 to 9:15 every night, listening to static, just in case. Last week, I saw her, the woman in white. She was standing across the street, watching my building. When our eyes met, she smiled that porcelain smile. Then a bus passed between us, and when it cleared, she was gone. I called Patricia the next day. "Does it follow you?" I asked. "After you leave?" "Sometimes," she said. "Usually not physically, but yeah, it stays with you, in your head, in your habits. You'll probably burn sage on Sundays for the rest of your life. You'll probably always feel uneasy after sunset. That's the price." The price for what? For seeing what's really out there. For knowing the world is bigger and stranger than most people realize. For being part of the agreement, even just for a summer. "Do you think it'll leave me alone?" Patricia was quiet for a long moment. "Eventually. As long as you don't go back, as long as you don't look too closely into the dark places, it'll fade, become more like a dream than a memory." "But Wes." "Yeah?" "You'll always know it's real. You'll always know what's out there in the deep forests, in the high mountains, in the places people don't go. And you'll never look at the wilderness the same way again." She was right. I went hiking last weekend with my girlfriend. Just a day hike, popular trail, dozens of other people around. Everything was normal, beautiful even. Sunlight through the trees, birds singing, the peaceful sounds of nature. But when we rounded a corner and the forest suddenly went quiet, no birds, no wind, no insects, I froze. My heart rate spiked. Every muscle in my body tensed, ready to run. My girlfriend didn't notice. She kept walking, kept talking about whatever she'd been talking about. The quiet lasted maybe 10 seconds before the normal sounds resumed. Nothing happened. Nothing was wrong. But I knew what that silence meant. I'd heard it before. The forest was watching. We made it back to the trailhead without incident. I didn't mention what I'd felt, didn't try to explain. How could I? How could I tell her that there are places where rules matter more than logic, where the old agreements still hold, where something vast and strange watches from the shadows? I can't go back to being the person I was before the tower. That person didn't know these things existed. That person thought the world was rational, predictable, safe. Now I know better. Now I know there are boundaries we maintain without understanding why. There are contracts we honor because they're all that keeps the chaos at bay. There are watchers in the wilderness, and they need to be watched in turn. The towers aren't empty. Someone is always there, following the rules, maintaining the agreement. Right now, Brian is up in the Cascade Tower, learning what I learned, following the rules I followed. Maybe he'll make it through the season. Maybe he won't. But the tower will remain. The rules will persist. The boundary will hold. Because it has to. Sometimes, late at night, I think about what the woman in white said. We could break it any time we wanted. If that's true, if they could cross the boundary whenever they choose, then why don't they? Maybe they need the rules as much as we do. Maybe the agreement gives their existence meaning, structure, purpose. Maybe they're as trapped by it as we are. Or maybe they're just patient. Maybe they're waiting for the day when there aren't enough lookouts, when the towers stand empty, when the rules are forgotten. Maybe they're waiting for us to break the contract first. I don't know. I'll probably never know. But I do know this. I followed the rules, and I survived. I maintained the boundary for one summer, and now someone else has taken my place. The line holds, and every Sunday at noon I light my sage and let the smoke fill my apartment, just in case. Just in case the forest remembers me. Just in case the rules still apply, even here in the city, even now, because some agreements, once made, can never be fully broken. Some boundaries remain, even when you think you've crossed back to safety. And some voices, once heard, never truly go silent. Last night, at exactly 9 o'clock, my radio crackled with static. I'd left it on Channel 7 without thinking, the way I do every night now. Through the white noise, almost too faint to hear, came a whisper, "Thank you for listening." I looked out my apartment window, down at the street below. She was there, in her white dress, looking up at me. Even from 6 floors up, I could see her smile. I closed the curtain and turned off the light. Some rules, I've learned, follow you forever. And the forest never forgets